Hello everyone and welcome to Charlie Models. It has come that time. We finished a sofa yesterday and we are getting on to our next build, and we're going to start it off with the inbox review of the HPH 132nd PBY Catalina, and this kit is massive. Going to take a look at it right here. Here's the box. Again, absolutely jam-packed with everything right here. It is absolutely massive of a box. The reason why I'm doing this kit is for a couple reasons. I love the PBY Catalina. I've always loved it. It was me and my father's favorite aircraft growing up. We always said that if we ever won the lottery, that was going to be the one aircraft that we would buy together. So this is the closest I can get without winning the lottery. So we're going to get into this. We're going to do the inbox review for the HPH Catalina, and then for part two, I do have a set from Reskit right in here. This is their engine and maintenance set. So this was made in 148 scale, or designed in 148 scale, and then they decided to do a scale up print, and they sent it to me for testing on this kit. So after I get done with this build, I'll be able to give them my recommendations on if they need to make any adjustments to the molding or to the print, and then they can put it out in production. So this is basically just a scaled up version of the 148. So if you do have the 148 Catalina, this will be a good showing for you to let you know if you want to get this set for your Catalina from Revell or Monogram. So I'm going to get the camera turned around and we can start diving into this box, okay? Alright, as you can see, I have the camera up as high as it can go and zoomed out as far as it will go, and this box doesn't even fit into the frame. So this is a huge box, and on the top of the box we got two great side profiles of the two options that we have in this kit, which are the British Lil Ann 2, and also, or the US version Lil Ann 2, and then the British version of the PBY. I absolutely love the story behind the Catalina on everything they did in the Battle of Atlantic, from both sides, the American and the British Catalinas, and then in the Pacific, the Black Cats, and also the Catalinas that were affectionately called Dumbo for picking up downed aviators. So again, absolutely amazing story on this. I do know that I'm doing mine as a Black Cat. It's not one of the options that is included in here, so I do have some 148 decals that I'm going to scale up and print some decals, and then also make some masks for the other parts. So we open up this box, and it is, like I said, absolutely jammed packed with resin and photo etch and masks. This is definitely a multimedia kit. So I'm going to get the box set aside and we'll start going into everything. Alright, so we'll start off with the instructions. The instructions they sent are on a CD-ROM. Alright, so this is the one gripe I have about the kit, was that they sent it out in CD-ROM, but I do kind of understand to save on cost, because the instruction sheet is 68 pages long, and to save cost they put it on a CD. Now my computer doesn't have a CD-ROM, so I had to I found the file on ScaleMates, I downloaded it, and then I sent it to Staples to get printed out, because that's a lot cheaper. That was $17 and some odd cents to get that printed, versus using up all of my ink and toner in my printer. So I thought that was a more cost-effective way of doing the instructions. So you do have the CD-ROM. It'll be a nice little frisbee. But yeah, so got that. But like I said, I did get the instructions printed out, and they're right here. I got them in black and white also to save a little bit of money, but we'll go through all this right in here. Alright, so starting off, you got a nice page with the front interior of this, and then we have all of our parts through here. You're definitely going to want to pay attention to this and what part numbers are part what, because they are not labeled on the actual casting blocks right there. Then we have our fuselage halves and our wing in 3 pieces right in here. Then we have a bunch of little parts all in there, and more little parts including our bulkheads on there, and then more bulkheads and more little detail parts and more little detail parts including our engine cowls and our landing gear as well, and then finally our clear parts in there. And then moving on, we have our color call out, which is in Goons colors right in here, and then we have our photo etch call out right in here. So we have photo etch, 2 sets of photo etch, and then we have GW seat belts and cots on here. So again, I have a love-hate relationship with HGW. I love the way they look when they are all done, but sometimes they can be an absolute pain to work with. Now on 1/32 they're a little bit easier to work with than in 1/48, but still can be a little bit of a pain. You just have to take your time to get them done right. Alright, so starting off with the instructions, we start off with the seatbelt assembly, getting all the buckles and all that, which will be in photo etch, and then our HGW seat belts, getting all of those done, and our belts, and then our cots as well in here. This is a absolute full interior on this kit. And then after that, we're adding a bunch of clear parts to it, and then we're starting with our bulkheads, getting a lot of our bulkheads done, and our watertight doors in there as well. More watertight doors, and then we're getting our landing gear well, our main landing gear well in, and then we start with our framing for the whole fuselage right in here. So we have a lot of framing to add in and all that. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start with the framing and everything, getting that all in, and then painting everything. It's going to be a little bit back and forth on the build, but it should work out. So adding in all the framing on there, then working on a table, and we have some navigation equipment and photo etch to add to that, and then also another desk and radio equipment all in here as well, and even your radio headset, and also it does have the Morse code transceiver there as well. So after that, we're working on more radio equipment, and then the radio operator seat, and then having the whole radio operators section done. These are nice and broken up. It tells you what section you're working on at the top of the page. So after that, we're still working on our radio operators section, and tools and radios and all that going in there. You see all that. Now online they are in color, but like I said, I went with the black and white just to save money. Black and white cost 17 bucks. I think the color was going to be around 30 or 40 bucks for the color version. So if you want to print it up in color, more power to you. So and then after that, we are moving on. We have the final part of our radio section, getting all of the floor panels on, and then a couple of bottles in there. And after that, we're moving on to our navigator section, getting all that in. We have the table and everything that we've already built up, and a few other parts to add into that as well. And then moving on, still adding in more parts to the navigator section, more equipment in there. And then we're moving on to our pilot seats, our cockpit parts. So getting all of those on and together, a lot of little parts. Then our control yoke on there, and adding a wire that goes in between the two, and then adding in our rudder pedals right here, and then our nose landing gear section, getting that done, and then our instrument panel, which is photo etch as well, and then we have the bulkhead and attached to the nose landing gear well, and then we have our throttle bay or throttle quadrant as well. Then after that, we're getting a couple of drainage holes added to the landing gear well, and then we're adding in some rods and our landing gear, or the actuators for our landing gear doors. Then after that, we're adding some more bracing for the cockpit, getting your rudder pedals in, and also your control yoke, and then your floor pans for your pilot and co-pilot seat. All right, then after that, we have more parts to add into the front. So a couple radio pieces and a couple other electronics equipment. And then we have the final picture of how the cockpit is going to look when it is all done. Nice picture right there. So after that, we're moving on to our front gunner and bombardier section, adding some seats and then adding in some more detail parts all in here, getting all of that done. And we have this anchor bay right in here, this little cupboard right here, but on the back side is there's nothing. I'm gonna have to cut out that door to have the anchor out, because I am gonna do this with the landing gear up. So with the nose landing gear section, I'm not really too worried about all the detail in there, but it is there. Then after that, we're working with our cots. We're back to the operator section, and we're working on our cots and a few other seats. This is your flight engineer seat right here. Then we even have a stovetop and a couple other pieces to add into here, and getting all of that added in to your operator section, getting all that and your cots and everything in there, because they would be out for a long time. All right, so then after that, we're just adding more pieces in here, parachute pack on there, and then our flight engineer seat. And then we have photo etch for our flight engineer's control panel right there, so they can check the viscosity levels of the oil on that. So, and then we have a bulkhead to go on behind of the flight engineer seat. Now we're moving on to our gunner section. So after that, we have our ammo cans and then our seats for the rear spotters / gunners. And then we have more detail parts all in there to add in. This is really going to be able to be seen, so definitely want to take your time in weathering and all of this on this part. Then moving on, we're adding in our blister bubble clear parts right here. It shows you 22 millimeters. Back is where the back piece is, and then we're adding all of the other pieces, including the blister window that is movable. But in this kit, it will not be movable unless you actuate or do a magnet system or something like that on it. Again, just adding more detail to these blisters. And then after that, we're working on the rear gunner section, getting the sanction post, and then this door right here says we're going to have to cut in half to get it to fold up a little bit. And then we have our gun. We do have metal gun barrels for this kit as well. And then we have a few other pieces to attach. And then another parachute pack on here, and then this is how it looks when it's all said and done. Now onto our engines. Getting all of our engines on, we do have a couple of parts to add for each cylinder head, and then we're adding some brass or rod to the engines, getting all that done, and then you add your spark plug wires. With this kit, I'm not going to be worried about that because I'm going to be using the Reskit engine. So I'm hoping that if you are interested in doing this kit, you'll look into, after you see what this Reskit engine set is, you're definitely going to want to get it. Alright, so now moving on, we have our wings, our outer wings. We're getting our float bays in, and then our aileron bay, and then working on our floats, our wing floats on there, and then getting our ailerons. We do have a couple of steel rods to add in to the wings to give it extra support on that, because this wing is about 39 inches wide on that. So after this, we're working on getting the exhaust kind of cones in there, and then also a couple of wing lights in there as well, and getting all that done. And then adding some photo etch in here, and then adding this piece in, and then we're adding in our engine and our engine cowl right there. And we have a couple holes to drill for our wing struts on there. Okay, then moving on, we're getting all of the wing triple all put together, and that's how it's going to look on that. So I'm going to get to this point, and I'm going to paint the wing separately. I'm not going to attach the wing until the very end. So after that, we are getting some rudder detail on back here, and then we are getting the fuselage halves together along there, and we have a couple holes to drill for our horizontal stabilizers. Then we have some photo etch to go over our windows. Then we're working on our horizontal stabilizers and our elevators right in there, and then adding in our rudder piece. And then we have our wheels to put on, and then our main landing gear, and getting that into the main landing gear. Well, I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to close this up, because I believe there's a metal shaft inside the landing gear. We'll find out here in a second. Alright, and then adding more detailed parts to your landing gear, getting all that done, and then we have a couple bombs to add in. I do have a Mark 13 torpedo that I'll be using for this kit, and Reskit is coming out with some depth charges here in the near future. Then after that, we are working on some antennas and radar antenna, 2 of them. And then after that, we're working on our props, and then after that, we are getting our guns all together. Again, we have metal barrels to go into the resin cast bodies of the guns. So I'm continuing on with your exterior parts with the gun, and then we have our front turret right in here with all the clear part, and then also with all the framing that goes in there. And then more gun and work with your turret. Then after that, we are getting our wing attached to our fuselage, and then adding in our struts. And it does have a say right here: for the right fit of part number 308, it is important to grind fuselage wall and roof. Properly prepared parts should not elongate. So we'll have to see how that looks when we get to that point. And after that, we're adding in our radar antenna in there, and then a couple other fuselage part or wing parts to go. And then some pylons for your bombs, getting those bombs on. I know with the torpedo, with the reference book that I have, I'm going to have to scratch build a special pylon for the torpedo. Then after that, we have a few other photo etch parts to add into the rudder and elevator portion, and a few other resin antenna, and just a lot of extra detail parts on the fuselage right through there. And then we have a clear part and some more photo etch. Then we're adding in the glass behind the cockpit, and then our actual cockpit glass going along in here with the photo etch pieces on the side. And then more, getting all of that done, and then we have some framing to go on top of the canopy right there, as you can see in that picture. And then shows you pictures of the complete model. And this is going to look absolutely amazing when it is all said and done. So I'm really looking forward to this. As you can see with these completed pictures. Then the decals for the interior. So on page, it's towards the back, right? So you're going to want to go back, and we're going to be flipping back and forth in here. But it actually has decals for each interior section that you're going to have to add as you're building along. So definitely pay attention, and be prepared to go back and forth on this kit. Then after that, we have our color callouts for the American Tritone from the U.S. Navy VP-62 Atlantic Area 1944. The Tritone with the dark blue, light blue, and white on here. And then we have 2 options for painting our propellers. Right in there, we have the 2 side profiles, and then the top profiles right in there. And then we move on to, we have the 5th BR Squadron, the Royal Canadian Air Force Base, Torbay, Newfoundland, 1944. These guys did a lot on the Battle of Atlantic, so definitely a cool option to have on that one. And then we close it up, and we do have some reference books that were used to design this, and definitely will be useful for painting and construction on that. So moving on to the next part for me, I do have a reference book that I will be using. It's called Legends of Warfare Aviation, the PBY Catalina, and this has everything from the start to finish of the Catalina right through here, even the different fire options, and then going on through there. So this is the book I'll be using for my reference. Like as you can see here, some engine detail right in there, and then we're just moving right along. Here, a lot of nice pictures, and also pictures to help with your antenna and all that, and a lot of them I do have bookmarked already. So this is definitely going to be, I'm going to have to see if I can find this little walkway. I'm going to have to scratch build for the diorama that I'm doing as well. So again, this book is on Amazon. I think it was like $17 or between $17 and $20. So not too bad, and a lot of information in it. Alright, so moving on to the next part. This is going to be a fairly long video as well. We have our colored resin navigation lights on here. So these are very, very nice. Is that a Coke bottle? Or I can't tell if, no, that's not a Coke bottle. Those are navigation lights right in there. So again, some nice detail on that, pre-painted. And then we have our metal gun barrels for your guns. Again, super nice. They have the cooling jackets all drilled out for you, and then your barrels all hollowed out. So very nice detail on that. Yeah, the barrels are hollowed out. So again, very nice detail on those metal gun barrels, as you can see. Then moving on to our decals. The decals do look super nice, nice and thin, and very little carrier film to any of it. Like even around the 3 and the 5, it is cut very close to the actual number. Then you have the submarine kills on that, and then your propeller decals, and then all the other decals on there. So definitely going to be using some of these for the black cats. Might have to see. I might use this one, but we'll have to see. Then moving on with our HGW seat belts. Again, we have all of our seat belts right in here, and you're just going to peel that paper backing from it and then rub it between your fingers. The oils from your fingers are going to get it nice and dirty and look like it's worn. So you'll have that information. And then we have our cots right in here and a couple other belts for that. And then we have a actual map right in here for our navigator seat as well. Then on the back side, we have all of our photo etch. So the instrument panels, as you can see right in there, is going to be a 2-piece instrument panel that gives that depth. Then all you're going to need to do is go in with some of that UV resin and dot a little bit in there, and that's going to give that glass look on your on all of your dials. So very nice touch on that. This is going to be absolutely cool when it's all said and done. Then all your other photo etch is nice and thin. It's not too thick. It's not like Trumpeter, how thick their photo etch is. But again, some very nice detail on that. Okay, and then we have our metal bars for our wings right in here. Nice and hefty. They are definitely going to hold the weight of those wings when they're all done. And then we have a bonus of this kit is we actually have masks for our roundels in here. We have masks for all of our clear parts right in here. Your canopy, your blisters, all of those are all taken care of, so you don't have to worry about masking that. And then we also have masks for our stars and bars, and we also have masks for the numbers, the 35 in here. So I would definitely be using these for the painting of the black cat, and then all of these for the painting of the black cat. Alright, so what I'm going to love about this inbox review is I don't have to worry about trying to get everything to fit back in the box. I have to say that is probably the hardest part of doing an inbox review, is trying to get everything to fit back in the box and get it to close back up. So now we are starting off with the actual fuselage halves, and these look absolutely amazing. They are fiberglass. It looks, yeah, these are fiberglass, so they will hold up the strength, and they are nice and cut compared to like when I got the B36. The B36 was not cut out, so you actually had to do all the cutting for like the front cockpit section and all the blister the little holes, the gun sights and all that stuff. You had to cut those out, but not on this. Some very nice rivet detail all on there. I'm hoping that this will show. Some nice rivet and panel line detail. I might have to go in and make it a little bit deeper. It does seem a little bit shallow in some areas, but I mean, it shouldn't be much work. There is a nice start pattern for that on there. And then we flip it over to the reverse side, and we do have the lines. So as you can see here, all these little lines are going to be filled with these the framing that's going to go in there, and that's going to absolutely look amazing when it is all said and done. Then we have the other fuselage right in here. Same detail as the rest as the other fuselage on there. The one thing is there's no drill location for these holes that will go into here for your wing struts on there. So this fuselage I just measured from the very nose to the tip is 24.1 inches on that. So it is a fairly large model. It's going to be a beast, and it is going to be a heavy beast when it is all done. But again, some very nice detail all through here, and you can see on the tail right through there. Again, definitely going to need to re-rivet some of this stuff just to make it a little bit deeper, so that way when we do the wash, it's going to have to that way we have something for the wash to sit into. But again, very nice. Alright, so we have a lot of little parts in this bag right here, so I'm just going to kind of fly through them real quick. So it's the seat. We have a couple other, the seat control or the seat legs right there. Another seat and another box right in here. And the way that you get rid of the wafer on the bottom is you just sand down. You get a piece of sandpaper, you sand it down like this until the wafer's all gone, and then you know you have the proper thickness on the kit. So our scoops right in here. These are your parachute bags or canvas bags. Another little piece, I'm not sure what that is yet. Another piece. This looks like this is for the antenna, and it does have the holes marked for your drills for your antenna wire right through there. Another detail piece. This looks like it's for your gun mounts. Bunch of little pieces right in here. The gun. Alright, so we'll stop, we'll go on this, and you can see the detail on the gun right through there. And there's going to be, like I said, a metal gun barrel that comes out of there. Again, another piece, I'm not sure what that is. Then we got a little tank right in here. Very nice detail on that. I think this is where your table is. A swing arm for your chair. Couple more little pieces. Some of these pieces might have broken off of this is one of your control yokes right in there, so you're definitely going to have to hollow all of that out right in there. Your exhaust. Another seat. A little bit of cleanup to go on the seat, but not bad. Looks like it's for your landing gear. Another one of your guns. Same detail as before. Another one of your radar antenna legs. More bottles. Another one of those. I think this is for the bottle holders. More landing gear pieces. This looks like is for your gun mount, maybe. Do not know what that piece is for. We'll find out when we build. More, it looks like landing gear pieces. One of your ammo chutes right in here. There's no bullet detail in the background. That's the only like kind of downside on that. Another seat right in here. More little pieces. More landing gear stuff. Another bottle. Can't tell what this piece is for. More little pieces. Another bottle. This is the hatch for your watertight door. Looks like a light. Another light. More pieces for landing gear, it looks like. Looks like pieces of framing maybe. A scoop. More canvas pouches. Another ammo belt. Another gun. Not sure what this piece is for, but it looks like it has some frame detail on there. Not sure what this piece is for. We have more radios right in here. One piece fell off already. Another scoop. It's like the tube that goes back in the back section. More of these pieces. Another radio. The radio is going to have photo etch on it, so another piece I'm not sure about what it is. Another gun. Bomb sight right in here. Nice detail on that. Oxygen bottles right in here. Another little detail piece. Another scoop. Couple more scoops. Another piece of equipment. Another seat. Another landing gear piece. Trying to be very careful when I'm cleaning up the resin pieces because I'm not sure if any of the pieces broke off and I don't want to lose anything. Up next we have our three wing sections. This is your port outer wing right here. Again, the rivet detail on here is nice. It's not very deep, so I'm definitely going to go through and I'm going to rescribe and re-rivet all of this just to give it a little extra depth, so that way when I am weathering it, I do know it fits or is going to take the wash real nice. It is nice and smooth fiberglass. We do have a kind of a join right in here. I'm going to have to sand down and also do some putty work on just to get it so it's a nice rounded corner on that. Then you can see the insides. You're going to have a piece that goes in here and then your flap well in there as well. But everything else does look nice on that. So we have the two outer shells and then the inner shell on this. Alright, so the inner wing, again, that's probably, the inner wing alone is almost 16 inches. Alright, so that's how big this kit is going to be. Alright, so again, a lot of nice rivet detail and everything on here. Gonna have to go through and rescribe it. Also, I got this little gouge right here on this, but that shouldn't be too difficult to do some putty and sand that down with a little lost rivet detail right there. But like I said, I'm going to be rescribing everything anyways. And then with the Reskit part, I am going to be cutting off from about right here, from the looks of it, to get the new Reskit piece in, which we'll be going over here in part 2 of this unboxing. But again, really nice rivet detail, a nice starting point. Just get a riveter and start going to town and you'll really be happy. And again, we have that front join point where we're going to have to sand down and do some putty work to get that to really look good. Alright, so then on here we have our center section that's going to go in. I'm not sure, we might have to cut that out. Not 100% sure, we'll have to take a look. And then we have the connection point for our wing struts. Again, we're going to have to drill a support hole on that as well for both of those, so those can sit down. And then we also have to take care of the trailing edge of the wing right here. As you can see, it's a little bit squared off, so again, just getting a ripper that you can rip down. Actually, no, that won't work because we have an area to fill back in here. So again, a few issues to take care of on this kit. For the money that you spent on it, you'd expect a little bit better. But it's a different medium than we're used to working with on a normal basis. Alright, so up next we have another bag of resin right here. We'll get zoomed in on this one. Alright, so moving on, we have another ammo can right here, and these I believe are our feed chutes that go along there. So some nice detail on our ammo can right through there. And then we have, not sure what this little piece is. It looks like a support bracket for something. Then we have another bar or something like there. Then we have our scoops for our engines right here. Some nice panel and rivet detail through there, as you can see. Again, another piece like that. Then our top of our nose landing gear, again, some nice detail on that. Then on the reverse side, again, very nice detail all through there. I'm going to have this closed up, so I'm not really too worried about it, but again, it's very nice detail on there. Then we have another piece, not sure what this is for. I think these are our radar antennas, the long ones that go in there, and we do have the holes pre-drilled out. You'll just have to finish up the drilling on that to slip your wire through, but again, nice touch on that. Then we have our landing gear doors for our rear landing gear. It says to cut this in half, but because I'm doing the closed gear section, I'm not going to have to worry about cutting that. Then we have a nose landing gear door. Again, very nice detail on the inside with this recessed rivets on the inside, but other than that, some really nice detail on that. And then again, we have rivets on the outside of that as well. I'm hoping that you can pick those up in the camera. Then the actuators for our nose gear door. Another nose gear door. The sidewalls for our nose landing gear. Not much detail on those. This is the framing for the cot. So you're just going to have to carefully cut that out with a razor knife to get that out, and then add your HGW cot in there. Another one of your nose landing gear well areas. Do have a little bit of cleanup to do right in there, but not too bad. I think this is another landing gear piece right in here. It is a metal core on the inside, so that's really going to help support the weight of this model when it's all done. Then we have another piece. This is where your tie down area is. You're going to have a cleat that comes in here as well. Another little piece, I believe this goes on the wing because there's a metal tube that comes out. Another landing gear piece. This is the back section of your nose gear bay. Another section for the cleat. Not sure what that is for. Another cot. Okay, so moving on, we have our engine cowlings, and the cowl flaps are in open position, and the rivet detail and panel line detail on here absolutely looks great, and the interior detail also looks fine as well. So no real issues. We do have a little burr right there, quick and easy to sand down. If you decide to use this, you're just gonna have to cut along here on the front edge of the engine cowl and then sand it down and round it out to get it looking right. And then we have more. You get two of these pieces right here. This is for your engine. Another engine piece right in here. Another engine cowl. And then this is that box for the anchor right in here. So I'm definitely going to look into having this and then cutting out that hatch for the anchor for the diorama. Okay, so now we have our clear parts, and they are clear resin, and they look crystal clear. Absolutely no issues with any of those. There is a few little scratches from them going around in the bag, but those will polish out real easy. And actually, real glass on aircraft is never actually perfect. There's always little scratches and nicks and all that stuff on it. So again, perfect on that glass right there. And then we have our main flight section right here, the main glass for our cockpit, and again, absolutely crystal clear on that with no issues. You do a polish on that, that's going to come out absolutely amazing. And then our blisters, again, even though it's a complex rounded shape, they are crystal clear. There's absolutely no magnification or distortion through these. So I mean, this is really nice on the clear parts, and they are strong because I just dropped it and it didn't break. Okay, in this bag we have more clear parts. They're all pretty much the same. We have more of our blister clear parts, which are crystal clear, than our top section right now. Okay, again, we have more of our clear parts, and again, they're absolutely crystal clear. No issues with any of those. We do have, like I said, a few scratches to deal with, but again, not too bad at all with that. Again, on your blister, even though it's a complex curve to it, all right, so there is some mismolding on this one right here, but it's not too bad on that. So again, you get a nice little polish to that and clean up. That's really gonna look really nice when it is all done. Then our front gun turret right in here, again, nice and crystal clear. You're gonna have all the framing in there, and you do have the mast to go along on this as well. You're gonna have to cut this section out right here for the gun. But again, as you can see, these are absolutely crystal freaking clear. Some of the best glass work I've ever seen. Alright, so moving on to our next bag. This is our main landing gear strut, and it does, like I said, metal core going through it, and it is going to be super strong when you have everything done to it. So I'm going to have to figure out how to cut it off, because the only thing I'm using from this is from this part right in here. But again, if you are going to have it with the landing gear down, the metal core is definitely going to add some strength to that. Then we have our propeller blade, again, nice and a knife edge finish to it, as you can see on both sides right there, and it's actually got the curve to the blade as well. Then our main wheel hub assembly, again, super nice detail all the way through there. Really nice casting on there. It's really gonna look nice when it's all done and weathered up. And your propeller hub, and then also some more, I think these are landing gear parts right in here. really nice detail on that. Your bombs are going to be 2 pieces. You have the tail fin, which are paper thin on there, and then just glues on right in there. Then you're going to have the little arming fuse right there as well. So those do not look too bad, but I am really wanting to see on a comparison on Reskit's Mark 38 depth charges on how those look in comparison. Okay, and I believe this section is for the back with the elevator going on, or somewhere around in that area right there. Then your main nose landing gear does feel like it does have a metal core on it, thinking. So we'll have to kind of do a little cut to see on if it does or not. Yes, it does have a metal core. You can see it right in here on there. So nice touch on that. And if you want to do it, you can just take your hobby knife, trim down that area, and we'll have a nice metal strut for your nose landing gear without having to paint. Then, speaking of our nose landing gear, we have our wheels and our wheel hubs right here, and then we also have a few other detail parts to go along with that. Then finally we have our support braces for our main landing gear and there, and those also do have metal struts in those, so those are actually, the strength on the landing gear is going to be very, very strong. Alright, so moving on, we got more bags of parts right in here. Get everything out. Alright, so on this first wafer we have more parts for our forward gun section right here. All the detail parts on that. So very nice detail on that part. And then we have this is your bulkhead for your wing float section. Again, super nice detail on there. And your rudder section on there as well, fully detailed. And then your light housing for your navigation lights on right there. So again, very nice detail moving on through there. Then we have our front instrument panel, which is going to have the photo etch right there, and then you have the back to it, which you can put all your cabling and wiring if you want to go that route with there. And then we have our throttle quadrant through there, and then a few other detail pieces all on this wafer. So a lot of little pieces on this wafer. Then we have this piece, which has our stovetop, and then a couple other detail parts on there. Then our seat cushions and a bunch of other little detail parts, and our control yoke right there. More detail parts there. Again, more seat cushions, and then some storage banks right there, and some other braces for radios. Then we have the walkway for our gunners, which is nice and at a nice angle for that. It's going to take paint real nice. And then also our armor plating for our guns. Did have a piece break off there, but again, really, really nice on that. Then we have another radio right here, and then another wafer of radios and other detail parts right there. Alright, so another wafer, a lot of little detail parts, not sure what they are. This looks like it's the table door, and this is actually, okay, the tabletop right here. And then we have other detail parts to go along with that. And then we had a couple pieces fall off of that wafer right here. Not sure what these are for yet, but we'll find out when we build the model. This looks like it's one of the parts for your throttle quadrant. Okay, so on this one we have that rear gunner door right here. Down the reverse side there's going to be wafers, so if we're going to put rivet detail in there, we're going to need to do it ourselves. And this looks like some of our rudder pedal detail right on there. And then we have more little detail parts all through there. A lot of little detail parts. These look like possibly your control levers right there. And even more detail parts This looks like it's a radio antenna that goes on top of the fuselage right in here. Then a bunch of other little parts. Continue on more. More pieces. I think this is the framing for your front turret right there, but again, a lot of little pieces on there as well. And more detail pieces on here. Your exhaust stacks and a couple other pieces. I know this piece goes into the nose landing gear well. Then more little pieces. See, this kit has a lot of little pieces. Alright, so here we have our bulkheads, or our watertight doors right here. You can see we have the one side, and then this is the other side to add that other detail on it. So very nice detail on both of those, and when you get them all done, they're going to look very nice. Then we have two wafers of more framing. Again, very nice and thin. Gonna have to sand those down to get those to fit, but they are going to look amazing when it's all done. Then we have more bulkhead detail on there. Again, very nice detail. We have one of our main bulkheads right here. We have the radios and even the cabling going through, molded into it, but again, won't be bad. And the way that you can tell that you have the proper thickness on this piece when you're sanding it is when this door of the wafer is completely gone. That's how you know you have the right thickness, when you have it sanded down just right. Another bulkhead right here. A couple more. These are very thin. More bulkhead. Don't know what these pieces are for. You're going to have a lot of little pieces and detail parts going on all those bulkheads too. So these are your floor walkways, and the detail on them, nice raised detail as you can hear, and on that it's going to take a wash and some chipping. Excellent. And that's going to really look good when it's all done, even though you can barely probably see a lot of it, but it's still there. Then more detail for your interior. A couple more bulkhead pieces. More framing. And these are your pylons. Not much detail on the exterior, but and then some other antenna right in here. Again, very nice. Get more detail parts right there. Okay, so on this bag we have a bunch of our bag or our framing detail right here. These are all numbered, so V6, 11, 12 on there. So all these little framing details right in here. Gonna have to take care of those, but those won't be too difficult to take care of. Yeah, those are all repeat parts. You get a lot of framing parts in here. Alright, so this back is of our engines, and the top cylinder heads right here, they do look very nice. There is a little bit of cylinder head, the cooling vane detail on there, if you can see it, is very faint on there. And then, okay, so the transmission unit for this absolutely looks amazing on here. Absolutely. The bolt detail on there, everything looks absolutely amazing all the way through. Then our main cylinder bodies, again, the detail on them is there, but you can barely see it. It should take a wash okay. Just more covers for your engines right here. Another detail piece for your engine. Some hoses. This is your spark plug cable ring right here. Again, very nice on that. More engine detail parts. Again, more detail engine parts, or engine detail parts. More tiny engine detail parts right in there. Alright, so we got this piece, not sure what that is for. It's a nice little step to it. Then we have all of our framing right in here, and you can see even there's little bolt detail going all the way through on those. Again, very, very nice bolt detail and framing. These are going to be a nightmare to sand down to get down to the right thickness, but when they're all done, they're going to look absolutely amazing. And we get a lot. We get, hold on a second. That's how many wafers that we get of the framing right in there. Then we have this one, which is a little bit different on here. Again, very nice detail as with the rest of the kit. Alright, so moving on to, this is our final bag of parts, and we have our wing struts right here. Again, there's metal rods in here that's really going to help support the weight of those wings, because they are going to be very heavy. But again, very nice on that. So we get 4 of those. Then our landing gear well, so this is the interior side of it right in here. Then we flip it around to the other side, and again, some very nice detail. There's going to be a little bit of cleanup required on here, but not too much, and some nice connection points on there as well. So with me, I'm going to have my landing gear up, so the wheel is going to be up and blocking all of this off, so you will not be able to see any of this on mine. Okay, for our floats, we have some nice panel line and rivet detail. Again, with the fuselage, we do need to go in and kind of re-rivet it and just make the rivets just a little bit deeper, so you can see them when you put a wash in there. With me, I'm doing the black cat, so I'm not really too worried about having a wash on there, but I am going to be doing some chipping and all that stuff, so you can see those when they're all done. So again, very nice detail. Oh, didn't even see the top side of it. That looks absolutely amazing on there. Okay, up next we have what looks like to be our elevator section, and yeah, the fabric, you're going to be able to paint this and make it look like it's actual fabric on there, which is going to come out absolutely great. If this was fabric, I'll have to do some research. I know most elevators and ailerons were fabric back then, but I'll have to make sure and see if these were actual aluminum or fabric with a tar, or not a tar, but you know what I mean, to make them stiff on here. So definitely gonna have to look into that, but the detail on here is very, very nice. Even with your trim tabs, some nice detail of the rivets in there. And then with your rudder, again, very, very nice rivet detail all through here. as you can see. Definitely going to want to give this a wash because there is some release agent attached to it, but I mean, still very, very nice detail all the way through. And getting this sawed off and sanded down is going to take a little bit of work, especially right in here. I ran into this problem a lot with the B36. You just have to be careful, take your time, and you'll get it taken care of. But again, very nice. Then we have the float well right in here. As you can see, all that nice rivet detail in there. Shows up really nice in that light. And then our float sponsons, again, the rivet detail on there absolutely looks amazing. I'm not sure what this piece is for. We'll have to see. Then your wheels, the tread on here is absolutely amazing on there. And then the Goodyear sidewall detail on there is absolutely, I mean, gorgeous on the detail on there. And you get this sanded down and glued together, and all that is really going to look good. I'm not sure what this block is for. Then we have, this is going to be your aileron back wall right in here. Again, nice detail. You're not going to really see any of it, and you're also going to have to get some pins to pin those ailerons onto your wings as well. Then for our horizontal stabilizers, again, very, very nice rivet detail through here, as you can see. Might need to go in and re-rivet it and re-panel line it just to make them a little bit deeper maybe. The panel lines do seem okay, and the rivets on here do look okay as well. I think that's because these are resin versus the fiberglass hull is what the difference is on that. We also do have the holes. You have your drill points for your holes for your supports for your ailerons, or not ailerons, but horizontal stabilizers. And then again on that one. Then our final block of resin is our ailerons. So again, very, very nice detail all through there. Do have even raised rivets through there. It took me a little bit, I had to feel along it, but again, nice detail on there. And then can't really see the underside, but again, very, very nice detail all through there. Alright, so that does it for the HPH 132nd PBY 5A Catalina, and this kit looks amazing. It is going to be a lot of work. I think a lot of work is an understatement for how much work this is going to take, but it is going to be absolutely amazing when it is all done with the detail that's in it. It reminds me of the cutaway PBY Catalina at NAS Pensacola. If you have not had the chance to go to NAS Pensacola Naval Museum, I would highly, highly recommend going there. I've been there. I've lost count of how many times I've been there, and every time I find something new. And it's right up there with the Dayton U.S. Air Force Museum and a couple like the Smithsonian and all that. So I haven't sadly been to any air museums outside the U.S. I heard Duxford is really nice as well. But for this kit, absolutely, I am super excited to get this thing started. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but I think the work and everything is going to pay off in the long run when the finished product is all done. So I hope you enjoyed this unboxing. I know there's only a unboxing from what I could find on YouTube of the half body, but I think this is the only unboxing of the full body Catalina on YouTube. So I hope you enjoyed this build. I hope you stay tuned for the actual build of this Catalina. I am going to be doing updates every week, so every Sunday I'll be posting a video about what all has been done and all that. So hope you stay tuned. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment on what you think about this kit. Also, hit that bell button for notifications of future content when it's posted. And until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.